It's Console Crapshoot, where we spin a wheel to play a random video game on original hardware. Carl's sleepy, grumpy, and chewing on his bed, but he's got all the game consoles on his wheel. At least all the ones we want to play. I don't want a Philips CDI. But what are we playing this week? Okay, the Sega Saturn. Good amount of interesting stuff there. That puts the Sega Saturn in the lead for our most played console so far. And we've got 271 games left on that wheel. Lunacy. Oh boy. Lunacy is an interesting one. Lunacy is an FMV game. It's a full motion video game. It's sort of like Myst in the sense that you're walking around pre-rendered environments, but Myst was more puzzle solving. This is more do everything you can possibly think of doing ad nauseum until you figure out what you were supposed to do to move on to the next part of the game. Think of it more like the Myst presentation meets the Monkey Island gameplay. Sans the humor. Well, at least it's not intentionally funny, but it's funny. I'm actually really excited to show you guys Lunacy.
Getting hard.
I've never come across a video game title that more accurately describes the vibe of a game. The only way this game's title could nail the description even more would be if it was called fucking bonkers. Because that's what it is. You start the game as a dude with no memory, and he's locked up in this prison with this creepy dude named Anthony. Last thing you want to see when you're locked up in prison is a guy posing like this while he's asking you questions. Eventually you get around to telling him your name.
The name that they call me is Fred.
And then Anthony goes back to posing. Anthony's weird. He's like this god or like devil figure. You don't quite know what he is. This, I think, is the best illustration of how Anthony makes me feel. Not only because he looks exactly like this, but this is the vibe. He leaves you feeling really uneasy. Anthony helps you get out. You're loose on the town. You start meeting people, and you start unraveling the story. This dude, Jade, is like a total prick. He's the one that locked you up. He's always trying to get in your way.
Hiya, stupid. You're looking chesty.
Maybe he's just mad because his shirt makes it look like he has huge saggy boobs in the front, and from the back it looks like he's got a really high butt. But either way, I did go to a GameFAQs guide for this game. Yes, GameFAQs is still around. It would just take too long to do it without a guide. For instance, you wouldn't know to pull on this ladder 3 separate times. You would pull on it once, and then you would walk away and be like, I guess that's not what I have to do. But if you pull on it 3 times, then you get the ladder to come down. So I want to get through this. I'm going by the guide, which is a challenge in its own. Deciphering this map and learning how to get around is pretty tough. Once you get a hang of the town and everything you're supposed to do, then you unlock the second part of the game. That's when you get to the City of Moons. It's like an ancient magic city. It's on the second disc, and that map is even more confusing than the town. Much more confusing. But once I figured out how the author of the guide had written this out and what they were trying to tell me, it started to make sense. I started coasting through the game, and while the story is completely unhinged, it was fun. The story was unique and outlandish enough to keep me entertained. The performances were amazing, hilarious, and since I was following the guide, I got all the way to the end, and I got the good ending. All these townspeople are in the City of Moons, and if you don't do the right things, they could die. You have to save each one before you go to the ending if you want to have the good ending. If I didn't give this mother and son this feather, they would have just fell to their deaths. But I did everything the right way. Superhero landing. You eventually learn that this little girl ghost is actually the child ghost of your adult girlfriend who you don't remember, who is stone, and you have to bring back to life. You kill the bad guy and then roll credits. The cast list is the characters' names. Cast, Fred, Zabu. You're not supposed to do that. The cast is the actors. The credits don't roll in a movie and it says starring Darth Vader, and it's so stupid.
Hey, that's a
nice cock. Alright, it's time to give a rating to Lunacy for the Sega Saturn. I had a lot of fun playing this. I would not have had as much fun if I didn't have the guide. If you're a Saturn fan, I recommend playing this, but use the guide and be prepared that the guide is hard to follow even if you're good at deciphering maps. This one is really cool just for the pure novelty of it. I usually cannot stand FMV games, but there's much more to this one. Someone did a massive amount of psychedelics to bring to this story, and I'm grateful. This is going to be a solid 3 out of 5. As fun as it is and as wacky as the story is, it also comes down to the gameplay. It's lacking a bit there, but it made up for it in personality. That was a really fun one. Every time we get something like this, I think it cannot be topped, but the wheel continues to surprise and deliver. Really looking forward to seeing what we get next week. See you then.
It is done.